What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hepburn Huddle, the community where we talk life, we talk faith, we talk Christ, we talk healing, we talk Jesus. The objective of this gathering is to build your faith and for us to come into the wisdom and knowledge of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So today we are talking about mustard seed faith. Now, I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to start, right? So let's go back to late 2023. No, before we go there, let's go back to 2018, right? So 2018, I can't remember exactly what I was doing, but I got this text message from my pastor at this time, "Hi, PM," and she was like, "Good morning, sir. Have you ever considered that you were supposed to be a pastor?" When I tell you that the no that spewed out of my heart, it was potent. It was a toxic no. And I said to her, absolutely, positively not. Because I'm doing this, and I'm definitely not thinking about that. And she was like, who told you to separate who God called you to be? You can be that and this and put them all together. I said, no. And she was like, okay. A couple of days after that, I was in a Bible study service. My pastor at the time told me to stand up. So I stood up, and he gave me a prophetic word. And guess what the prophetic word was? You are going to be a senior pastor one day, and you're going to be a faith pastor. And there are some things that you need to learn, and God is going to train you quickly. I was 28 at the time, and I remember when I got that prophetic word, it had such a weight to it. I felt like I was going to have a panic attack. I remember my sister was next to me, and I think she said something along the lines of, "That's good." She said something sarcastic, completely ignoring the fact that I was about to pass out because the weight of that word was so heavy. And I put my hands up and I said, yes, I'm going to be a faith pastor, and he's going to train me quickly. And one day I'm going to be the under shepherd of a congregation. That's not the plan that I had. I didn't study pastoring. I didn't go to school because I wanted to be a pastor. I didn't pray about it. But if it was God's will, I said yes. Immediately, a lot of times when we say the word suddenly in Christianity, we're saying God is about to move suddenly. And sometimes he does move suddenly, and it's not suddenly what you thought you were going to get, but it's suddenly this is what he wants you to get. Suddenly, I entered this season of great, deep trust. This is a safe place, and like I always say, if I have to be the one to be transparent first so that you can feel comfortable, we're going to do that. Immediately, things started happening where God was putting me in different scenarios to trust him. All of a sudden, the comfort of your savings account is stripped away. All of a sudden, the consistency of things that brought you comfort is stripped away. After I said yes to that word, it's like all heaven broke loose. Warfare from left, right, and center. I can't even tell you some of the stories. I mean, things started happening that made me question if it was real life, like bold witchcraft kind of stuff, things that I can't explain. I'm like, what is happening? So dealing with the warfare of what comes with the call, and then also being in a trust season. Have you ever been in a space where you had to have faith to get through the war that you were in, the warfare, and then you also had to have faith to trust God? So you're dealing with the reality of trying to trust God as he strips you away from your comfort, and then you're dealing with the reality of the war that's associated with your call. I realized how underdeveloped I was when these things started happening, right? Crazy warfare, right? So I thought, okay, this is just a moment, right? And then 2020 went by, and 2021 went by, 22, 23, 24. Here we are in 25. For about 5 years consistently, the places of comfort and the places that seemed like they were the source of provision, it's almost as if he pried me away from them. Like he broke us apart. And there were moments when I had to literally remind myself that, hey, Faith Pastor, man, I don't even know how to elaborate on this, because I think we don't take spiritual things seriously. And I think a big part of it, let's be real, is the fact that God isn't this physical being who comes and checks up on us. He does it through people, but God himself is not this person who comes and says, hey, that prophetic word that you got the other day, just checking to see that you're allowing that word to work in you. He's not that kind of God. And I feel like because God is gracious and kind, and sometimes he allows us to get away with certain things, and he extends his mercy and extends his grace, we underestimate how serious the weight of spiritual things really are. So you would throw your hands up in a service when he says, and God is about to show you exactly who you are. And then after that word, you go through this process that comes with immense pain. You don't even know where it came from. And you're trying to figure out what is happening. It's very real what is happening, because when he spoke through that servant, when he spoke through his word, because the prophetic word has to always line up with the logos. If what you're telling me doesn't line up with the scriptures, there's an issue there, right? Because he's always going to process what he prophesies, which means before that blessing comes to your business, guess what's going to happen? He's going to show you how you're very terrible with money. He's going to show you how you don't know the value of a dollar, how you just get it and you spend it, right? So for me, I underestimated the weight that came with that call. Okay, Faith Pastor, I'll take it. And then your savings starts to dwindle. And then you try to stack it back up, and then it dwindles. And then you bind the spirit of poverty, and you bind the locusts, and you bind the cankerworms. And then you try to stock it in, and still, I'm like, hold on, wait, what is happening? What is happening is that word is being worked. If you're going to be a faith pastor, then there are going to be situations tailor-made just for you to trust me. So 2024 rolls around, and I'm at a low place, y'all. I'm talking so low that I started to study other world religions. This is a safe space, so we don't condemn anybody, especially anybody on a journey, but we believe that Jesus Christ is the only way over here. But when I studied the other worldviews, it became abundantly clear that I wasn't even going to give it any of my attention. For me personally, Jesus Christ is the way. But the point was, I was so low at that time that I started to look at other worldviews, not to convert, but to make sure that I was convinced that Jesus Christ really was who he said that he was, and that he is who he says that he is in Scripture. And I came to the realization that if the resurrection is true, and the source that tells us that the resurrection is true, if I can trust him to resurrect, then I can trust everything else that he says to be true. That was the conclusion that I reached. If he said that he would die and come back, and he did. And we know that he did because the scriptures said that he did. But even if the scriptures didn't say that he did, there were eyewitnesses. There were people who lost their lives because they said that we saw the resurrected Christ, which means that if he really did resurrect, That means he kept his word, which means when he says that he's the way, the truth, and the life, the resurrection being true tells me that everything else that he says is true. So I reached the conclusion that God was not a liar and that Jesus is trustworthy. And I got up and I kept it moving. Late 2023, I feel the Spirit leading me to resign from my job. I am 33 years old, going to be 34 this year. And during the time that I felt that it was time for me to leave that job, I was on the job for like 13 years. For 13 years, that office job, that filing clerk position was all I knew. And I was a grown man on that job in his 20s, crying real tears because I'm like, man, I'm in ministry. I'm seeing the fruit of ministry. People are listening to the music because, like I said in the first episode, I be rapping, y'all. I be rapping. I be pastoring and rapping or pastoring with rap. Yeah, we figured out. So I'm like, I don't want to work on this job. But God never allowed me to leave. So finally, I feel like the Spirit, because sometimes we get frustrated and then we say that God said, no, that wasn't God, that was your frustration. Make sure that it's God and not your frustration with the current season that you're in. And I was like, God, this feels like you, though. This doesn't feel like my flesh. And he sent confirmation. How did I know that it was time to leave? I was praying, and I felt like God was preparing me for my exit. And then my pastor sent me a message out of the blue. She didn't even know I was in prayer at that time. And she was like, hey, I want you to spend the next couple of, I think she said weeks or days in praise because you're not going to be in that job much longer. And I'm like, my pastor don't open her mouth just to say anything. She's this very Spirit-led woman. And I'm like, okay, I'm praying this. She says this. This has to be confirmation. And then my coworker walks up to me, hugs me. I'm going to miss Alex. Who told her anything? I later found out that she felt some things. It was obviously the Spirit letting her know that my time was winding down. So I'm like, oh my gosh. After 13 years of crying in this office, filing paper, shredding paper, doing receptionist work, doing handyman work, being the young one on the job who basically did whatever they told him to do, and not getting a steady pay increase and having to do all of these things. There was a particular process assignment on that job where it took me a year to finish it because they wanted me to do it. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying when you're on a job for 13 years and you're getting added responsibility, but you're not being compensated for it, that becomes an issue, right? That becomes a big issue, right? So I'm like, okay, my time here is done. So I resigned. And the next instructions that the Lord gives me is to rest. Bruh, that bruh was very intentional. Bruh, how is it I'm leaving my job? I have a wife, a very good wife. And you're telling me leave this job, but to rest. So I leave in November. I get some funds. I sold a percentage of those funds. One day I was in service, Legacy Church, that's where I worship, and there was a lady being recognized for her charity work. It was a lady who was like taking groceries, and she was literally paying Ubers. I think it was Ubers. I could be wrong, but she was paying for transportation to carry the food to different places. So she was spending her own money weekly feeding the less fortunate. And I felt in my spirit that the Lord was saying to give her your car. I said, absolutely not. I mean, I left this job. My mechanic is trying to buy this car. If he buys this car, then I could have some funds. I got bills. I got needs. I leaned over to my wife in that service and I said, I think I'm supposed to give her my car. And my wife just said one thing. You sure? Well, she said a few things. She said, you sure? If that's what you feel like God is telling you to do, go and tell another pastor. I don't know why she said it. I thought to myself, I need to just give her the car. Like, why do I need to tell another pastor? Not knowing that the pastor that I told that I was going to give her my car to, he was like, man, I'm literally here saying I wish I had a car to give her. So my wife telling me to go and tell him that God is calling me to give away my car was literally Holy Spirit giving me confirmation that, hey, you're supposed to give her this car. So my beloved car of 6 years, I think it was 6, 7 years, I gave her, as soon as I took the key off my bunch and I walked to the altar, these words came in my pastor's mouth. And we believe that God is going to allow someone to give you a car. As soon as she got that car out of her mouth, the key was in the lady's hands. And I fell on the floor and I wept like a newborn baby. I cried like a newborn because I'm like, man. And guess what? A month after that, we found out that we were pregnant. Shout out to Asher. He's the love of our lives. And I'm here like 5 years of learning to trust you when it seemed impossible, enduring all of this pain, realizing that my money isn't low because I'm in sin. You're teaching me how to trust you as my source. I no longer have the luxury to rest in the comfort of my finances, the comfort of my paycheck. I have to now trust you as my source because I can resign from a job, but I don't resign from my source. You are my channel. You are my source. So 5 years of learning to trust you as my source, 13 years of being on this job and crying because I don't want to be here. And here we are, about to have a baby, no job, no car. Faith. Trust isn't trying to figure out what God is going to do next. Trust is being directed to where God is taking you, right? So we think, God, I'm hungry. God, I am starving, but I'm trusting you. And we think that a 6-piece is going to drop out of the sky. No, he's going to direct you to where the provision has already been made. So God, I don't have it, but you supply all of my needs and you're a good father. I need it. And then somebody pays for your grocery. So trust isn't this sitting around being lazy, doing nothing. Trust is actively pursuing where he says there's going to be provision. So it's not going to fall out of the sky, but he's going to direct you. He's going to direct you to where his provision is being made. So trust isn't this passive thing where you sit around and wait for manna. It is, okay, God, direct me. When I look back over these last 2 years, it's been 2 years since I left that job. When I look back over the last, 15 years of ministry, those 5 years of learning to trust him and the overall journey, this journey has been over a decade. When I look back at it now, God had already made provision. I just had to actively pursue where he was making provision. I was so used to the comfort of a paycheck and the comfort of a 9-to-5. But it all boils down to this one thing. Faith says, because God gave me instructions, I'm going to move based off those instructions. So when it got hard, when I was rebuilding the foundation of my walk because I was at a very low place, when I decided to get out of that low place and still declare that Jesus is Lord and I'm going to still serve him despite whatever's happening, I understood this one thing, that if God told me to leave, he will sustain me, right? And some of you might be watching this today and you've gotten confirmation. You don't need no more signs. God is saying what he's saying. You got to rest on the fact that God said. Period. God said. Jesus tells the disciples that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, You can tell this mountain to move, and it will be moved. Why mustard seed? It's a very small seed that grows into a noticeably large tree. But why did he say mustard seed? He's talking about a little seed. Jesus is saying, hey, a little faith, watch this, in God and what he said to you is going to move more mountains than big faith in what you think you should be doing. So you have a mustard seed, and then you have a mango seed, right? Let's say you have a mustard seed and you have a mango seed. What he's saying is mustard seed, little faith in God's ability and God's instructions and God's power. That little mustard seed is going to move more mountains than mango seed faith in myself. I'll break it down. Little faith is, I don't know the outcome, but I'm going to trust you anyway. Big faith is, I don't know the outcome, but there's no doubt in my mind. Little faith kind of wrestles with the certainty of the thing. I'm not certain about this, but I'm going to trust you. Big faith is, no, I'm standing on business. You told me to leave the job in January. I'm out. Mustard seed is more, I'm not sure. Peter coming out of the boat, he had to make sure that it was God. He had to make sure that it was Jesus telling him to come. He wasn't sure, but he stepped out. And I feel like for us, we don't even stop to consider the fact that if it's just a little bit of faith in God's power and character, he'll move. I didn't know what was on the other side of leaving that job. I was expecting to be drowning in millions because 13 years of being in the process, things are about to pop off. And then you go into a deeper season of trust. There are moments when I have the mango seed size faith. This is what God told me to do. I'm doing it. I'm standing on that end of discussion. And then there are moments when I have the mustard seed faith. I'm not too sure, but I'm going to attempt to trust him. Mustard seed faith is not the end goal, but it's a part of the journey, because if you would move with a little bit of faith, he'll honor it. And the question that I have is, what if your weak faith can still be used? Doubt is a struggle. I'm trying to believe God, but I'm not sure. Unbelief is a disease. The difference between doubt and unbelief, doubt is a struggle. You're wrestling to believe God. Unbelief is a disease. You got to be cured from that, because unbelief says I'm refusing to believe God. So I'm not even going to make the attempt to do what God has called me to do. Why? Because I'm not believing. And some of you got to be free from the thought that if my faith isn't big enough, God won't use it. If it's mustard seed, which is the act of faith that isn't too sure, but you still make the attempt to trust him, he'll use it. If it is big, he'll use it. But if you just have a little bit of faith in who he is, even when you don't understand what's on the other side, you can trust him. The disciples got the directions from Christ that, hey, let us go to the other side. And a storm came. And they were like, Jesus, wake up. Don't you see that we're about to die? And he addressed what was going on around them, but he also addressed their faith. How is it you guys are forgetting that two things? One, I am with you. And if I am with you in the storm, there's peace. Two, I already told y'all we're going to the other side. It was the God said, Jesus said, let us go to the other side. It is the faith that what he said is true. He didn't say, let us perish in the storm. He said, let us go to the other side. So even when it looks like things are happening that oppose what he said, you rest on what he said. Mustard seed is, the other side isn't looking possible right now. That's how I feel. There's a bit of doubt there. But you said, let us go to the other side. So I'm going to make the attempt with that little bit of faith. I'm not too sure that there's another side, But I'm going to give you the faith that I do have, trusting that what you said is true. I hope that today's episode encouraged you to stop asking God for a sign when he's already given you the sign, and stop waiting for your faith muscle to be bodybuilder status before you make the attempt. You might just be on a little bit of dumbbells. You got some 5s, some 10s. The faith muscle ain't looking too big, but you've built enough muscle to be able to carry what's next. So instead of waiting for your faith muscle to be ginormous, how about you take the faith that you do have and say, God, this is what I have. I'll close with this. We don't have faith issues, or we don't have trust issues. We have attempt to trust issues. That's something that the Lord said to me when I was writing this book a few years ago, meaning we don't even attempt to trust God. So trust isn't the issue. Our refusal to make the attempt to trust is the issue, right? So when a person says, I have trust issues, what they're basically saying is, I've made multiple attempts to trust, and I got hurt in the process. When you have attempt to trust issues, that means you're not even going to make the attempt. I don't know what God is saying. There's a storm. I don't know about the other side. Attempt to get on the boat. The people who move in faith are the people who made the attempt. You got to step out. If he's saying come, you can't be concerned about what's happening around you. You got to make the attempt. As you continue to make the attempt, your faith grows. Faith starts with an attempt. So you don't have a trust issue. If you had a trust issue, that means that you were making attempts to trust. You have an attempt to trust issue. There is a refusal to trust him. We got to fix that. How do you do it? God, you said, I'm moving. You said, we lay hands on the sick and see them recover. The people we don't see healed are the people we don't pray for. The miracles we don't see are the miracles we don't pray to see. The miracles we don't see are the miracles we don't attempt to see. If he says that the prayers of the righteous availeth much, if he says that the sick will be healed, they will recover when you pray for them, you got to attempt to pray for sick people. But what happens if I pray and they don't get healed? Faith is not about manifestation. Faith is about identity cultivation. You're not taking God at his word because you want to see instant manifestation. You're taking God at his word because you want the identity of faith to be cultivated. So you pray for the sick, and if they aren't healed, you pray again. You pray, you pray, you pray. You keep making the attempt to pray, and eventually when you do see the manifestations of your prayer, you don't just celebrate the fact that you saw the manifestation or the miracle. You celebrate the fact that you cultivated a heart of faith, because faith pleases God. We walk by faith because we love him. We want to please him, not because we want results. Results are the byproduct of our obedience to him. So stop waiting for things to be perfect and make the attempt. We cool. I feel like the room just got tight because y'all got books y'all ain't put out yet. Y'all got songs y'all ain't put out yet. Y'all got the word that you're going to be married, and you haven't been taking care of yourself, preparing for that. So the delay has really been your refusal to attempt to trust God. Attempt, and he'll do the rest. Yeah, this one is a hard one. This one was a very, very, very hard one. But God is kind. God is faithful. Father, bless those who took the time to tune in, God. I pray that this episode be used as a seed. And I look forward to the testimonies, the countless testimonies of the people who will say, all I had to do is remember what he said to me, and he did the rest. Bless every home. Thank you that no evil shall befall this community, no plague shall come nigh their dwelling. And let someone see light because of those that are watching, and they give you all the glory. Let somebody's light shine before men, that they may see their good works and glorify their Father in heaven. So, faith walkers, let's do it. Let's do it, and let's glorify him in the process. Thank you for tuning in to today's huddle. What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. The huddle wouldn't be the same without you. Thank you. If you want to be a blessing to the ministry and the movement, feel free to donate. Any amount will be greatly appreciated. That information will be up shortly. Until next time, keep your faith up. God bless.
He is my Lord, He is my Master, He is my all, He is my Dada, and when I call, He always answers, He is my Papa. It's a blessing to call Him mine.